you don't obviously you don't pick the place or the family where you're born, and being the eldest, especially out of five, becomes a big responsibility.
There are people in our lives, families, friends, that no matter how bad things are, no matter what they've done, we cannot help but find and meet them where they are and take care of them. This was something that stood out to me in my conversation with Mario. But wait, who is Mario?
Mario is someone who is no longer trying to be a robot or a super perfect human. He's always ready to show his very human side. He's not ashamed of others seeing him making mistakes. He's ready to teach people that we as humans, we have to grow and learn from those mistakes, because that's what shapes us.
You know, my dad owned every room he walked into. It was the life of every gathering. Everyone who met him had something great to say about him. But those who really knew him, people who knew him completely, they understood he wasn't perfect. He couldn't be, but we all loved him. And my chat with Mario brought back so much about him and how I found a lot of use for the good I learned from my dad. And I had no use at all for the not so great things. So get a cup of coffee or a glass of juice. This is Ordinary People.
Back in the day, I can recall a few days, a few years in my life when I was very, very young, where everything was fine. My dad was there to take care of everyone, my mom as well. We had a nice house, we had stability, we had money, and everything was fine, until it wasn't. Being the eldest suddenly became a job that I could not do. I could not do. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I had to do it. It became a big responsibility. Why? Because my dad, and I want to make an emphasis here. My dad is one of the most important persons in my life. One of the persons I love the most. But it's always a difficult relationship that not a lot of people understand. So
Mario's dad was a prominent figure in the community growing up. Everyone loved him. He was a leader, he was quite popular, and he always wanted to help people around him.
Just to give a simple example, he was taking me to school by car, and on the way he would see some of other parents with the children, and he would be like, just jump on the car and I'll take you all. And it was always like a really, really full car going to school, and it was annoying. But now that I grew up, I'm like, well, that was really nice actually. And he was a preacher as well. He was really involved in the faith, in the Catholic faith, and and he led a lot of people to the faith. He helped a lot of people to get married, to convert to Christianity, and perhaps for that reason he was always a target, because at some point he had weaknesses. And when going back to my own period of life, where I was already the eldest of three, the last two siblings were a couple of sisters, and they were twins. It was in that period where my dad basically fell off, and he became really addict to drugs and alcohol, and he gave up his job. So my mom was giving birth to the twins, and her job was the only job that was sustaining the family. But it wasn't enough, as you can imagine. It was a big family, and at the same time my dad was spending a lot of money in alcohol and drugs, and the whole situation in my house became really, really difficult. So my dad would just go crazy, and sometimes he would threaten of killing my mom. I remember seeing him with a knife trying to stab my mom. I'm still not sure if he actually meant it or it was just like a crazy moment, but as a child you don't know. I say this because later on my dad recovered and he didn't show like any signs of actually wants to kill my mom. But back in the day, you have no idea, and it was really distressing. I was trying to have a normal life, coming back from school, do my homework, but it was impossible. It was impossible. There was always something being broken, something being sold. My own toys, like I would get my Christmas presents, and in a week they would be gone because my dad was selling that or exchanging that for drugs. So I was really, really young, and as the eldest sibling, I was in charge of hiding the knives and any sort of dangerous object, so my dad wouldn't threat my mom. That was a really unexpected responsibility. And when things would get really, really crazy, I was in charge of taking my siblings and asking my uncles, my grandma, anybody, take this one, take this one, take this one, please let them stay the night or a couple of nights until things go quieter, until we figure this out. And usually everything would just end up in my dad in jail for a few days, and it would be really, really disturbing.
What is even more heartbreaking about this is that Mario was just a child. He was barely a teenager when he had to take on these responsibilities.
I was always trying to protect my siblings from the most horrible things. So I would be the one staying in my house with my mom and my dad and the crazy situation, so I could protect my siblings, and I hope I did it. I hope they feel that way. I hope they realize that they don't have those many horrible memories as I do, because happily they didn't have to live that as often as I did.
Mario's story shed light on something pretty important. As children, our understanding of our parents is superficial. We know them solely in their role as our caregivers, not as individuals with their own stories and struggles. But as we get older and we don't need them just for the basics anymore, our perception shifts. Suddenly, the person who was just your mom or your dad becomes someone you can really understand and connect with. And that's when the love we have for them sort of deepens, not just for the role they've played, but for who they truly are.
There was a very interesting moment in my life, a very specific moment where it was just me and my dad. And I was already, living, basically I was not depending on him. So I felt like a little bit more open to talk to him, not as a dad, but as a friend. And that's when I rediscovered or redefined my relationship with my dad. He became my dad and my best friend. Again, as I'm saying, it's difficult to explain after everything that happened, because I always knew who my dad was. And it was like, it's just so frustrating, everything that we are dealing with because of you. But because of the previous things, the positive things, we give you another chance to make it up to us. And I think that was the general feeling from everyone, to always give them another chance. It's difficult because they stick around anyway. Yeah. So you have to sort of give them a chance, Almost a year ago, my dad passed away out of nowhere, all in a sudden. And that was perhaps one of the most difficult moments in my life. And in the midst of all the drama, crisis, sadness, if there was something I could say or come up with, was that I had a lot of use for the positive things that I learned from my dad. And I had no use whatsoever for those bad things. Like, there is no use for that, honestly. And until today, I carry on, obviously missing my dad a lot. But I feel very grateful with God because of everything I learned from him.
But all I know is a life you live won't come again. Oh, hold it close like a mother holds her children. And when you're feeling
That was something. Thank you so much for watching, and please take some time to share this video with someone and subscribe. See you next time.